All right, can everyone see me now? Can everyone hear me now? Just drop a yes in the comments if you can. I am so sorry about that. My program, for whatever reason, was not loading. But now we're okay. Okay, whew. Sorry about that. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to this webinar about using or not using AI to write your posts and comments for you. I see Kate Woods here. Hi from Oregon. Oh, that's so amazing. I've never visited Oregon, but I'd love to go. Hey, Mauro from Chile. Oh, that's exciting. Love that. Okay. So I'm so sorry we're 10 minutes late. Okay, great. Yay, everyone can hear me. Lovely. I'm so sorry about that. Again, I have been having the worst technical difficulties, and I will actually talk about that in a moment. Because I wasn't able to upload the freebie. So just before we get started, if you would like the freebie that goes along with this webinar, just comment freebie in the comments, and I will make sure to get that to you after this. But whew, this has been so stressful. I am so sorry. But anyway, we are going to talk about today about how to stop using AI to write posts and comments because it's so obvious. But I'm going to give you some alternatives that I think you'll find are a lot easier to implement in the long term. So we're going to talk about why not to use AI, the telltale signs that someone is using AI to write for them, how to easily write content in your own native language, how to edit that content, and then all of the free and paid software that I use to try to help me with that, and then also who to follow for quality AI content if you do want to use AI and leverage it for your business or for your posting efforts. Oh, hey, Andrea. Hey, Kate. All right, I got you, girls. I see you. But who am I? My name is Emily Merritt. I am the founder of Clear Lead Marketing, and I have a background in scientific editing and writing. Oh, thank you, Kate. That's so nice. I have a background in scientific editing and writing, and I've been doing it for over a decade, and I've noticed a lot of patterns in how people write, and so this webinar in particular, I think is going to be very valuable for people who struggle with writing quality content or just don't know how to do it, know where to get started. And I talked in previous webinars about it, but I honestly think that this one is the coolest. It's definitely been very, very fun to work on. Oh, and I forgot to mention that as we're going through this, two things. One, if you do start having technical difficulties, like me, what LinkedIn, I've tried to talk with their customer service about it. The best solution that they have is to say to exit out of the app on your phone and then to come back into it, or to either log on to your browser or log on to your phone, whichever is the opposite of what you're using. And then also, if you have any questions that come up along the way, make sure to post them. My helper, Temideo, he's in the feed with us, and he is going to be looking out for questions and making sure that I see them. And I will either answer them as we're going along, or I will answer them at the end. But and if you want to save your questions to the end, great. But feel free to comment along the way, and I will have no problem answering them if I can. Obviously, if I don't know what the answer, I will help you find it out. And so, anyway, back to my little spiel here. What Clear Lead Marketing does is we help B2B teams build and sell on LinkedIn with science. We have all sorts of different services, but basically we're a team of copywriters, lead generation strategists, graphic designers, video editors, scientific researchers, and data analysts that are all here to support you and try to help you increase your presence on LinkedIn, build your business, hopefully make more sales. I'm going to be coming out with some DIY content and courses, boot camps in the future, but we also have a lot of done with you and done for you support that we can provide for you as well. And so as I said, this is the stuff that we're going to be going over today. We're going to go through the steps of creating content. And that's actually what the freebie is going to be at the end. It's going to be a step-by-step process, basically this presentation, just in a cohesive document for you to follow along with. And then, of course, as always, put your questions in the comments, as Temideo just said. And I would like to know what kind of content you would like to see going forward. Obviously, I want to cater it to you and what you need to help you grow your business and your sales, whatever it is that you need help with while increasing your presence on LinkedIn, because I think LinkedIn is such a powerful tool for anybody who wants to use it. I think it's better as far as businesses go than any other social media platform out there, but I'm obviously a little biased. And then, of course, at the end, I'm going to be talking about some freebies that we have. You can look at them on our Gumroad account, and then I will send it to you directly because, obviously, technical difficulties are like, they should be my middle name at this point. Emily, technical difficulties, Merritt. So, before we get started here, I just wanted to give a huge thank you to Ramiz and Temideo for helping me refine this process and test it out before bringing it to the World Wide Web. We tested this in Urdu, Yoruba, I know I'm not saying that right, but Yoruba, and Spanish to see if it would work, and it does work pretty well. So obviously, if you're creating content in English, this works for you too. But my primary goal was to help people. Oh, hey, Nikki. How you doing? My primary goal was to help both native and non-native English speakers create content more easily online. So I'm going to be including steps for all of those groups. And just a disclaimer, obviously these tasks, nothing is foolproof, right? Like everything is on case-by-case basis. However, I do believe that this way of creating content is more genuine and showcases your expertise a lot better than relying on AI. And I am no expert in AI, but I have used it in the past in an attempt to create content, which I will show you in a moment. And it has variable results. I'm not a huge fan of it, especially if you're not an expert in it. There are people who are experts in it. And if you're willing to put in the time to learn the tool, which I will talk about in a moment, then it's good for you. But oftentimes, I think people misuse it. They just copy and paste what AI wrote or rely on the AI comment generators, and you can tell. And also, I've worked with a lot of non-native English speakers in my time as an academic writer and editor. And so I understand their struggle of what they go through to write in English. And I just really feel for them. And so I'm hoping that, again, these techniques and hacks can help both non-native and native English speakers alike. So why not to use AI to write comments and posts for you? Now, I am talking about cases where people literally type in a prompt to AI, or they use those comment generator thingies that you can add to your browser, and they just post that right away. And the first big problem is we want to hear from you. We want to hear your expertise. We don't want to hear AI. We don't want to hear what AI has to say. You have such a unique perspective. And nobody knows your expertise like you do. So if you're relying on AI to relay your information, that it's not genuine. It doesn't get your point across effectively. And I know that for me, when I see AI written content, my brain shuts off immediately. And this is obviously me just being biased, but I know that they relied on AI to write it. And I'll show you the telltale signs of how you can tell if someone's used AI to write content. But it's just, I want to hear, again, your expertise, not AI's. And I think in the world where AI is getting more and more popular, it's going to be extremely important for people to start really owning their own voice and their own genuine word. Reason number 2, I've been a copywriter and editor for over 12 plus years, and having tried to use AI to write content for me to streamline the process without getting too deep into it, it's super hard to write and edit, to edit AI written content as compared to your own spoken word. It just is. Now, I get it. Everyone says, it's hard to edit your own writing. Absolutely. But with AI, it's even harder. And I'll show you the telltale signs, but usually it's because it's super repetitive. what AI writes is super repetitive. It uses too many words, and it really doesn't get to the point that you're actually trying to say, which can be very, very frustrating. And one of my best friends, Courtney Lashkowitz, she is an expert copywriter, an inventor, and a product licensing coach. And she has tried to use AI, and she's dabbled in it probably more than I have. And this is what she had to say about using AI to write for you, specifically to write for you. Basically, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you prompt it poorly, you're going to get a poor response. And the most important thing, like any software, is like you must learn the system and spend a ton of time getting good at it, which obviously is very laborious. And failure to learn it means failure to get good results. If you're not willing to put in the time to learn it, don't use it. Now, as the caveat to that, there are several people who are teaching prompting and they're developing ghostwriting GPTs. One of my favorite people out there, who I think personally is the highest quality AI teacher that I have found so far, is Isabella Bedoya. Here's her LinkedIn right here. I will show a little screenshot of it at the end of what her profile looks, or what the headline looks like. But she rose to the scene a couple months ago, or earlier last year, when AI was becoming a huge thing, and she's got a ghostwriting GPT that's super high quality. She has a lot of boot camps. She's also just a really great person. I've talked to her on several different occasions, and she always provides really nice value. And so I highly recommend that you follow her, because she does really know her stuff. I won't bash people who I think don't know their stuff or are just posting about AI because it's AI and it's popular and you can get clout that way. However, she is awesome and she provides a ton of great quality content. So now we're going to go into the telltale signs of people that are using AI, or if you use AI to write content for you, here's what to avoid. But here are some tools that somebody might use. There's Engage.ai's ChatGPT for LinkedIn, which I'll show you some examples in a moment, but it's not to be, they have an extension. Engage.ai has an extension that's a hashtag analyzer. Love that extension. Not to be confused with this. This is for their ChatGPT for LinkedIn comments. Then also LinkedIn has come up with AI writing tools. And then of course there's always ChatGPT and Bing and things like that. These are the tools that some people might need. Of course there's more, but these are, I think, the most popular ones that I've noticed. So some telltale signs. I'll just go over the list first, and then I will show you examples of it. 1, you know somebody's using AI when there's a ton of emojis. Beginning of the sentence, end of the sentence, throughout the sentences, everywhere there's emojis. 2, grandiose statements. They have grandiose statements, and there's a lot of colons, and then there's also, oh, see, there you go. Andrea agrees with me about Isabella. So another thing that AI loves to do, it makes huge grand statements in the beginning, then followed by a colon or a dash, and then it follows it usually with another grandiose statement, and then some more general statements after that. Honestly, AI just talks, and it doesn't really say much. It doesn't get specific. It just speaks in grand statements. And then another telltale sign of AI written comments or content posts is that they include, if you say act like a social media editor, blah, 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 and write this for a LinkedIn post, it'll include crappy hashtags that don't rank well, which is a huge pet peeve of mine because you want to use hashtags strategically. You don't want to just post everything. And here I will now provide examples. And hopefully I don't do what I did last week's webinar where I forget to bring back the presentation. So, first off, I forgot to show, this is Isabella's profile. She's great. Love her so much. She really knows her stuff. And I can't wait for her to blow up even more than she already has because I think she's way higher quality than a lot of the other people out there. But here is a post that I just did like an example post just for this webinar. So I said, act like a LinkedIn content creator. Create a post under 550 characters about why LinkedIn is great for lead generation, or why is using LinkedIn great for for lead generation important? I worded it weird, but let's just assume that English is not my native language, and I would prompt it similarly. Look at all these emojis. This is just crazy. So many emojis. Okay, here we go. Grandiose statement number 1 followed by a colon. Building meaningful connections. Grandiose statement number 2. Engage with decision makers directly and establish rapport through personalized interactions. Okay, grandiose statement doesn't get specific, doesn't tell you how, doesn't tell you anything really. I mean, it's not a bad summary, but it's still a grandiose statement. Targeted outreach. Utilize advanced search filters to pinpoint your ideal audience based on industry and job. Again, more generalized, grandiose statements. It goes on and on. And then here's the kicker. In today's competitive landscape, leveraging LinkedIn for lead generation isn't just beneficial. Dash. There you go. There's a dash. It's essential for business growth. Okay, this literally says really nothing. I mean, sure, at first glance, does it look great? Absolutely. But it doesn't really say anything. Now, let's go over to the hashtags it included. These useful hashtags. I have tried to use AI to find popular hashtags. I've even tried to search for popular hashtags on Google search. There is no substitute for it other than doing your own research. I use Engage.ai's Google Chrome extension for hashtag analytics, but there's another way to do it. I talk about it in previous webinars. But here you go. LinkedIn lead gen only has 22 followers. That doesn't help. Business growth might have a little bit more, but let's see. Maybe not. All right, that has 10,000 followers. Not terrible. But you're getting the trend that there's definitely a more strategic way to include hashtags. Yeah, 139 followers for networking success. Basically, using hashtags is a whole other segment. I did talk about it in a previous webinar. However, don't rely on what ChatGPT gives you. Just as I actually probably should have said this at first. The way that ChatGPT works is it plays advanced Mad Libs. It doesn't know information. Of course, there's some GPTs and things like that AIs that search the internet, and I'm sure the technology will develop. But right now, it just tries to match words next to other words that it thinks you want. That's all it does. So in this case, it's just matching words, matching hashtags it thinks you want. But that's not, obviously, that's not how it works. Or in the real world. Like, we actually want to use our brains here. And I know Isabella talks about this, and she's got a ghostwriting GPT, and I've seen her use it, and it's very good. I know that you can train GPTs in the background. However, that takes time. You got to learn about it. You got to research it. It's not something you can just do. I'm going to provide you another example. So here's a post. Not sure who this guy is, but here's a post. So this is an example of Engage.ai's commenter. Now, sometimes it comes up with really, really quality posts. But as an example, I will show you what it does. It reads the post. You click friendly. It reads the post for you. You click what option you want. It reads the post. So in this time, you've already could have started writing your own comments. But it's reading this post, and now it's coming up with a response. And now you got to go back and edit this response, because guess what? It's so long, and it's repeating the same information that was in the post. This is, to me, how it's obvious that someone's using a ChatGPT comment or AI to comment. It literally doesn't provide any value, any unique feedback. It's just regurgitating what the post said just for the sake of regurgitation. Now, luckily, this one doesn't include emojis or weird hashtags, thankfully. But I'm sure that there are some that do. This is just the one that I know about. And so then so not only did you have to wait for it to create this response from the post, but then you got to go back and edit it with your own voice. Again, I know that you can, especially this Engage.ai GPT, you can train it in the back end and kind of like hone it in on your voice and exclude words that you don't want to include, things like that. But in the moments that it took you to wait for this thing to do it, you could have already come up with a much more high quality response in your voice and edited perfectly to what you want to say. And of course, at first this takes time, but if you're really truly serious about using AI to grow your network and your platform, the quicker you're going to get at this, the more proficient you're going to get, and the more you're going to hone in on your expertise. So I highly recommend that in these cases in particular, you should be commenting. Okay, so I'm going to leave that and I'm going to go back to the presentation. Yay, I didn't forget this time. Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Okay, so here's what my rant that I just went on. Take the 10 seconds. Use your actual brain. Don't wait for the response and then edit. It's ridiculous. Just do it yourself. You'll get quicker and you'll hone in on your expertise. Sorry for repeating myself, but that's it. Okay, so now we're going to get into the meat of it. So Emily, all right, so you've convinced me I'm not going to use AI anymore. I get it. Too many hashtags, too much repeated information, just takes too long. But I don't know how to create content. Well, let me help you. All right, so step one is obviously brainstorming content. I'm sure if you're like me, I constantly have a flow of ideas for content, so I'm never short for it. But of course, there's always new things that you can be talking about. I talk about how to brainstorm content and create content in my previous webinars. Temi, if you could go ahead and link the 2 previous webinars in the comments, that would be great. And then also I've got some a content brainstorming cheat sheet and a content hacks guide to help you boost your reach when you're just starting out posting on LinkedIn. And all of those are included in my Gumroad account, as long as the freebie from today's webinar that I will send you guys. Oh, the technical difficulties. But, so obviously step one, the first initial steps to all of this is brainstorm content. Okay. So now you've got to start creating your content. And this is where I think that this system is much more effective than relying on AI to help you create content. So let's just say that you're at a crossroads where you're like, am I going to use AI to create content or am I going to do it myself? If you do it yourself, and obviously that's the route I recommend. Here's what you do. And this is the easiest way that I found to create content, and it's the easiest way that I help my clients create content if they don't already have stuff behind the scenes. So step one is to either write out your ideas or to use a speech to text on your phone. You can either do this in English if that's your primary language or a language that you're comfortable speaking or writing in, or you can use whatever it is that your primary language might be. And to develop content, to start brainstorming content and create these ideas, I use Notion, but I also sometimes use Google Docs. It just depends on what I'm looking at the moment. And I just briefly to show you what it looks like on the back end for Notion, I have this special planning template, and you can find all sorts of things on Notion, free templates and things. But if you see on this end, I've got a backlog of all of the content ideas that I have, and then we've got ones that we're drafting, reviewing, and published. I don't have any that are done yet, but I am in the process of going over that. And so, thank you for sharing those 2 previous webinars, Temi. I see that you did that. But here we go with the backlog, just to show you what that looks like. Okay. Alrighty, so then step 1.2. All right, step 2. Well, step 1.2. So there's 2 options. You can either write out the content yourself, or you can record a video or a voice note. Now this I find is probably the easiest way to do it, but you want to record yourself because then you can pull the transcript from it, which I will talk about in a moment. So either you record it in English, if you can, or in a fluent common language. I'm going to give a caveat to that in a second, why I say a fluent common language as opposed to your fluent native language. And those might be the same your native language might be very commonly used, but there's reasons why that might be problematic in the future, but it's all work. You can all work around it. So how I do it is to record a video or a voice note. I either use my phone or computer and I save it in Drive, or Notion is something that you can do, but I like to use Drive. And then I also use a free screen recorder if I'm doing a show and tell sort of thing. That is what I use Streamlabs for. Streamlabs is a great free software. So if you're if you're writing out content, you already have a transcript that you can use. If you're using a video or an audio recording, then you need to pull the transcript from that. And a transcript is just literally a write out of what you said. Usually it comes in a text file or an SRT file, something like that. And a great way to get audio or video transcription is by using Clipchamp, which is a free software. I will show you in a moment. You can either download a desktop app onto your Microsoft computer, or you can use a web browser, which I will show you. Then there's also Streamlabs Podcast Editor, which is free-ish. You get up to 100 hours per month free of transcription. 1 hour free per month of transcription, and then after that it's paid. It does have limited languages though. Clipchamp has a big diversity of languages, however, not all of them, but you do get unlimited free transcription with that. Descript, same thing. They're a really high quality transcriber, however, they have limited languages and you only get up to 1 free hour per month. And you have to download a desktop app, which is kind of heavy. You might not want to bog down your system with that. Then there's also Adobe Premiere. They have limited languages and it is a paid program. And of course, there's always human transcribers, usually found on like Upwork or Fiverr, that you can use. But of course, those cost money. And then there's plenty of other transcription services out there. But again, the key is if you haven't written the content, then you need to somehow get the content in written form. So here's my little warning about if you are trying to get your transcription from a language other than English and you're speaking in your native tongue. So many video and audio transcribers have limited languages to choose from, or the additional languages that they provide are behind a paywall. So in this case, like Yoruba, sorry, Temi, I know I butchered that. Yoruba, if you're, oh, hey, David, thanks for coming in. There were some transcribers that had that language available. However, the transcription was terrible. And so one recommendation I have is if you are comfortable speaking in another language that's more commonly spoken, record in that. Otherwise, you can get away with writing in your native language if that's easier for you. And for a moment, let me just go back and show you the software that I use to transcribe. So this is Clipchamp. And how I do it is I already pre-uploaded a video and I turn on auto captions, select which language that I speak in, and then it'll take a couple moments to load it. But once it does, it'll come up with a file that I can then download directly from here, which is great. And there's one free way to get a transcription from your video. Another way to do it, oh lovely, oh yay, don't you just love it? Oh, thank you, yes. Okay, another way to transcribe a podcast. Ooh. Another way to transcribe a podcast is by uploading it to Streamlabs, and there's all sorts of, you'll have to play around with this a little bit, but there's all sorts of, you can add subtitles, you can translate the video, you can edit it from here. This is actually really great software, but again, it is limited. You can pay for it, but as all business owners, if we're starting out, the least amount of subscriptions we can pay for the better. So I just wanted to show you those softwares before moving on. Okay. So back at it. So as far as writing in your native language goes, that's of course not English. I do understand that some business and English terms do not have an equivalent in your native language, and that's totally okay. It's why after we transcribe to English or whatever language it is that you're trying to post in, you want to edit it before posting. And we'll talk about how to edit in a moment. But in some cases, it may be easier for you to write in English, and that's okay too. Do that, but also make sure that you edit it, because of course, you don't want, since we're not relying on AI to write for us here, you want to make it as relatable to your audience as possible. And if you're posting in English, then I know that a lot of people in the English-speaking world are very, very keen on grammar and spelling. And so, but there's ways. Don't worry, I got you. I will show you how to get around that. Okay, so if you didn't write, so going to translating content, if you did not write content in English and you need to get it into English, there's several ways that you can do it. So thank you to Ramiz for pointing out this lovely site that I will show you. But it's called Akbar on Development, and here's the link to it. And it takes, so as I showed you in Clipchamp, you can get it to download a text file or an SRT file for you, and then you can upload it into this site, which is awesome. Let me just show you that in a moment. Here we go. So I will upload a transcript just to show you. Here's a transcript written in Spanish. And we're going to use Google Translator. This is a free site. You don't even need to sign up for it, which is wonderful. But you just upload your transcript. If you're able to get a transcript, again, if you're speaking in a non-commonly spoken language, then you're just going to want to write. This doesn't apply to you. This is just for people who recorded a video and were able to get a transcript from it. So now we translate. It's going to translate for us. Wonderful. Look. And here's the transcription. So this is one way, and you can copy this. You can edit it as needed. All that jazz. Great site. All right. So that's one way that you can translate your video transcript. Another way to do it, now this is applicable to whether you used a video transcript that you were able to download, or if this is something that you wrote out, but you can use Google Translator. So I'm going to copy this over here. But we've got something that Ramiz wrote in Urdu. Ooh. Don't want to do that. Ramiz wrote in Urdu. Oh, come on. This is very frustrating. There we go. Okay. Oops. Okay. So you can just go over to Google Translator. It's a free tool. It's available in an app on your phone or on the web browser. And it can automatically detect the language for you. But I copy... okay. We will do that with the other transcript. That is fine. Here we go. I will do it with Yoruba. But I'm going to paste that over, and look, it was already detected, and here is an output. Now, we did test out the Google Translator output versus ChatGPT's output, which I will go over in a moment. But what I would recommend is, especially if English is not your native language, to try out different tools. So Google Translator is a great tool, but it might not say exactly what you want. So then what I would recommend is going over to ChatGPT. And I have a post in here that I will include in the freebie, or I'm sorry, a prompt in here that I will include in the freebie in the end. But it says, please translate the following to American English or any language you want. And I said, do not hallucinate or add information, just translate as is. So the same thing that I put over in Google Translator, copied and pasted here. And this is the response that ChatGPT came up with. Now, what I would also recommend is that you let ChatGPT generate it once, and then ask ChatGPT to generate it again. Because it might come up with a different response that you like better. And you can literally copy and paste this over and start making content from here. And the same goes for Google Translator. You can just copy and paste it over and start making content. And of course, as I showed you in the Streamlabs podcast editor, that there's ways for you to translate your podcast or your video from that as well. But I feel like probably these large language models and Google Translator are built a little bit more for that. And obviously, especially with ChatGPT, you can get it to create several different iterations or several different responses for you, so you see which one you like best. And then, of course, you can always get a human off of Upwork or Fiverr to translate for you. But again, those are expensive, and you might not want to spend that sort of money when you're starting out. So these are great ways to get this information. And we did the same thing for a Spanish transcript. In this case, I took the transcript that was over in the developer app the free developer app that I showed you earlier. I copy and pasted the transcript directly into ChatGPT with a special prompt. Took a little bit of cleaning up because of the numbers, and I will include this in the freebie as well. Obviously, you're going to have to provide your own examples, but it's very, very similar. And then the output was actually very good. And the output here between ChatGPT and the free developer app that I showed you a moment ago, they're two different ones. So you might want to see which one you like better and test them out. But both are perfectly fine ways of finding what you need. Okay, so going back. Oops. Sorry about that. Okay. So now, step 3 to this whole process. So you've started writing your content. You've either recorded your video or your audio, and if you used video or audio, you transcribed that content. So now you have a document. So, and I will show you in just a moment an example of what we did from a transcript that I had. But from what you wrote or transcribed, you want to copy and paste out the key points. And then you want to start building this post in Notion or in Google Docs. I highly recommend that you squeeze as much out of what you talked about as you can. And you can pick out ideas for future posts by commenting, noting it, highlighting it. And again, I'll show you in a moment an example of what I've used. But you really want to pick out the most valuable content. And you want to squeeze as much out of it as you possibly can. So here is an example of a transcript from a video that I wrote, or I recorded. And this is the direct transcript from it. Obviously, it's in bulk text, and we've formatted it a little bit. But here I went through and I started highlighting, okay, this would make a whole carousel in addition to the checklist. Okay, let's turn this into a text post, a short newsletter content. I highlighted things, all that jazz. I highlighted green spots that said like, oh, this would be a good post. So then, for example, what I would do is I would copy and paste this over, and I would create another document to start building the post that I want to build. So this is not that post, but this is just an example of, and please ignore all of the red highlights, those are just notes for me, but these are examples of where I copied and pasted over content. So the first phase of this is just to get it over into the document. Just don't even worry about creating a story yet. Just copy and paste the main points that you want over into your document. And then after you've copy and pasted those main points over from the transcript or your writing, and you've gotten it all in one place about the topic you want to write, that's when you start editing and turning it into a story. So let's go back for a second. So I know that some people might feel really inclined to start using AI here to edit it for them. Like take all of the copy and pasted information, feed that into AI. Again, I would be wary of doing this because it's hard to edit what AI writes. Also, it comes up with a lot of repeat information, and it may not maintain your voice the way that you want it unless you have it trained as a GPT like what Isabella Bedoya talks about. If that's the case, in my eyes, it's just faster and easier to do it yourself. Plus, it maintains your own voice. And it's something that as you do it over time, you get better about it. And I'm sorry we're running over in time here. Me having technical difficulties in the beginning did not help. But, so now you start to create that story. Really hone in on what you're trying to say. So then, after you've started to move around all of the parts and create a flow of a story, you go back and you do a round 2 of editing. You cut out the unnecessary info and you want to get to the point as quick as possible. You really want to make it as tailored to your audience as you possibly can. If you need to, after you've done the second round of editing, come back in a few hours or the next day. It really helps to come back with a new, fresh set of eyes. You might have better ideas next time around. So round 3 of editing. At this point, you're really going to start to have a story of what your post is going to be. And this process can take anywhere from, let's say, 20 minutes to several hours, depending on the kind of post that you're trying to build. If it's a nice, quick, short post, it won't take that long. If it's a long, more informative post, it might take some time. But that's okay because that's what this is all about. And also you can break it up into multiple posts as a way to get more content. But then you want to start formatting. So editing round 3. Now you want to, round 3, not 4. 3. You want to start formatting according to what I talked about in last week's webinar. You want to make content that's easily scannable. But here's a quick recap of it. So there's several different parts of a post that you want to have. You want to have that hook that makes the reader stop scrolling. You want to have the body of the post, which is what we're talking about in this webinar, and I've also talked about in previous webinars. Then at the end, you want to have a call to action that gets the audience to do something. And then at the very end of that, you want to have hashtags that you can get more reach. Again, don't use AI's hashtags. You want to do your research to make sure that you're getting enough reach. But I talk about that in the previous webinar from last week. So if you want more information about that, please watch that webinar. But basically, just quickly, again, I talked about this in last week's webinar, but I'll just go over it now. You want to make scannable copy. A lot of copy, and copy just means the words in a text. A lot of posts are just block text, as if somebody is like texting somebody. And while, yes, you want your post to be relatable and like you're writing a letter to somebody, you also don't want it to be blocked out copy. You want it to be spaced out. You want it to look pretty. You want to draw readers' eyes with ascending and descending lines to certain parts of the post that you want them to see. Again, just going over this, people a lot of the times have big block text. Instead, you want to make it nice and scannable because people aren't, as much as we would love for people to read our post word for word, most times they're not. And so you need to capture their attention in the best way possible. And the best way possible is to have these little sound bites with easily digestible lists. And then you would have like a hook up here, a list, and then a call to action at the bottom. Or you have you have a hook at the top and some paragraphs that are easy to read, and then some sort of action at the bottom. And then also a really good recommendation that Lara Costa recommends is you want to write every line like a hook for maximum impact. Again, I talked about this more in last week's webinar. And this does take a lot of good editing, but hopefully with the editing process that I'm walking you through, you will see how to kind of go through different phases and how that might work for you. And again, in order to make things stand out, and also I'm going to talk about accessibility in a moment, I use hyphens and arrows for lists instead of emojis like some people do. And then you want to visually separate out your call to action and hashtags so they don't get lost in the mix of everything else. And obviously hashtags are just for reach. They're not for the people that are looking at the post. But Yasmin Alik brings up a really good point that accessibility is super important for your post, because 33% of people who are part of your audience and looking at your content are either sight or hearing impaired. And so you want to make sure, and this is something that's not talked about a lot, which is really unfortunate, and this is why I think that you should steer away from using AI to create content for you. It's because a lot of people overuse emojis, and part of why that's problematic is because, one, it doesn't help really your post and your information. If anything, it detracts from it. And two, when people are using screen readers, using emojis at the beginning of a sentence or overusing them, it sounds like garbage on the screen readers. And so you want to use them minimally, or you don't want to use them at all. Or if you do use them at the end of a sentence. Also, things to avoid is not using all caps, because it sounds terrible in screen readers. And then fancy text generators that bold certain things and italicize other things, maybe use special characters. I know that Authored Up does this. Hey Yay, there's other ones out there that do this as well. Those sound terrible on screen readers as well. So you want to be careful when formatting your content to avoid those things. But one thing that you might want to use is asterisks to stress a word instead of bolding it. You do want to write concise sentences and keep your post under 1,000 characters, which is about a 60-second reading time. You want to use Pascal case for hashtags, like this LinkedIn for Business example, because of how it's read on a screen reader. And then also, this is just a little side note, if you have graphics or images, you want to use all text. I talked about this in last week's webinar, but Canva has a great tool that helps you do this. And all of these things just help make your content, one, more easily listenable and readable for all of your audience, not just the 67% of people who are not hearing and sight impaired. And all of this just makes learning easier and streamlines your whole content creation process. Okay, now that we've talked about structuring our posts, we're going into editing round 4. Now you must be like, Emily, why are you editing so much? Because editing is really, really important. And plus it's hard to do. So I'm trying to help you guys come up with a process that's a lot easier. So now that you've taken the copy and pasted over the most valuable points from your transcript, and you've started to create a post that you think your audience will like, now you want to copy and paste that over into the Hemingway editor, and you want to download the Grammarly extension. Both of these tools are free, which is amazing. Obviously, they have paid versions, but I don't think you need the paid versions. You want to copy and paste over into the Hemingway editor, and with these tools, you can simultaneously check your grammar, check your spelling, and check your flow. So I will show you what the Hemingway editor with the Grammarly extension looks like, but essentially you want to eliminate all yellow and red highlighted sections, and then you want to follow their editing suggestions to get your post to a 6th grade reading level or less, because a lot of people in your audience, the simpler or the easier your post is to read, the more relatable it will be. I know a lot of people feel inclined to use huge words, myself included, but it's much, much more readable and digestible if you use common language and not jargon. So let me just pull that up really quick. So here is an example of the Hemingway editor. And so this is just when you log into the Hemingway editor, it's just hemingwayapp.com. This is the example that they give you, but you can just delete this and copy and paste in what you want. But for example's sake, I will show you. No, stop. Of course. So if you can see, it says Hemingway app makes your writing editor bold and clear. Personally, I think that the Hemingway app is better than, say, using Grammarly's Pro editor, specifically for writing content online, because they give you this readability score on the side here, and then they tell you how many words and characters and things like that are in here. And these are all things that are important to keep your content more easily digestible. It even talks about reading time, paragraphs, things like that, which is a great metric to know. But here you can see that it's highlighted this sentence in yellow and this sentence in red. These are sentences that are either hard to read or very hard to read. You're going to want to split these up edit them down, make it so that those turn from red to and yellow to nothing. And then because I have Grammarly's writing extension already listed on or already downloaded on here, you can see that these red underlines, and sometimes they're yellow underlines as well, this is Grammarly's tool. So this is a little, Hemingway Editor doesn't really talk, they're more for talking about flow and readability, whereas Grammarly will help you actually correct spelling errors and things like that. So all you have to do is just highlight what it wants, and you just click the option to correct it, and boom, there you go. I would highly recommend that you go through all of these suggestions and see what they write. Now, of course, sometimes the suggestions that it gives you aren't great. Obviously, use your discretion. And you want to maintain a conversational tone. These tools are wonderful for helping you get your post ready for posting, no matter what language you speak. And so, again, you want to get to the 6th grade reading level or less. All right, so now editing round 5. Yes, I know there's more editing involved. I am sorry. And I am sorry for going over in time. I wish that wasn't the case, but hopefully you guys will be catching value on this from the replay. So in the Hemingway Editor, so you went through and you made it more readable. You want to go through one last round of editing, and you just keep your writing in the Hemingway Editor with the Grammarly extension, and you want to just really cut down as much as you can while still getting your point across. I recommend here that you say only as much as you need to get your point across. However, you want to make it as short as possible while maintaining your conversational tone and your personality. So now you've done your multiple rounds of editing, you've structured it for readability and for accessibility. Now you're ready to go. So now you want to start bringing it over into LinkedIn and getting it ready for posting. I talked last week about the difference between scheduling a post versus posting it natively. But I won't go over that here. However, and I also talk about the different performance types for the different types of content. But essentially, to add a little bit of value, you could just post the text post as is, just with what you've written. But you might also want to add a carousel, a video, a selfie, or some other sort of graphic to it. Again, I go over this in last week's webinar. But a bonus here is if you use the original video that you had, that you originally recorded and got the transcript from, if you have that video or if you recorded a video, you might want to include that on this post to get a little bit of extra dimension. Obviously, I recommend using either a professional video editor, or if you have your own skills, that's great. But if you recorded it in another language, you might want to translate it to English or have subtitles that are in English so that it's more, you get more reach for a wider audience. But that's not my area of expertise. I would highly recommend that you talk to Ramiz Manowar. He is a great video editor, and he will set you up right. He is my video editor, although I haven't been posting a lot of videos that are not me, that other than me just on my camera, on my phone. But I will start posting that more and building up my YouTube, and he's going to help with that. And so obviously, I know that writing and editing can be very, very daunting, but the more you write, the more you record, the better and quicker you get at it. So get stronger, put those reps in, go to the mental gym, and you will get better at this and quicker at this, and you will be much more quick and proficient at it than AI could ever be for you. And of course, then you'll be able to connect with your audience a lot more genuinely and showcase your expertise and your personality. And last but not least, if you do want to use AI correctly and you want to start learning more about it and diving in, I highly recommend that you follow Isabella and then also Zane Khan. Both of them have really great insights into AI. Isabella in particular talks about prompts and business and using AI for business and content creation. She's my favorite. So if you didn't want to follow anybody else, she would be the one to follow. But of course, there are other people out there that talk about stuff, and they're great too. Just whatever you resonate with, that works for you, that streamlines the process for you, absolutely do it. And so obviously I realize that I've run well over our time. So I am sorry. And I don't see that there are any questions or comments in the chat. But if you would like some freebies, you can find them here on our Gumroad account. And obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to comment them below. Even if you watch the replay, I can still catch the comments. Or you can DM me, and I will be happy to answer your questions. Or you can email me at clearleadco.com. Again, I do apologize for the 10 minutes or 11 minutes worth of technical difficulties in the beginning. I really do apologize because that made us run terribly over. But I hope that you guys have a great day and you found this valuable. I would love to answer your questions and any sort of insights that you might have. So thank you so much for coming. I really hope that you have a great day and talk to you soon.